And let's stay right where you are so that I can show you a little couple illustrations to set us up for our class today. So is that coming through okay? Can you see that all right? This is a picture of your foot. If you could see underneath the skin and all the muscle and connective tissue. And the reason I wanted to show you this is just look at the number of moving parts. Is that not something? There are about 32 different bones in your feet. And so you have a tremendous amount of mobility there. The other thing I kind of wanted to show before we get into our work is the bottom of your foot, the sole of your foot. And I don't know if I have anybody in class today who does reflexology or who understands the Chinese meridians, but you can see the layers of muscle and connective tissue on the sole of your foot. And we really want to think about how all of that is connected to the muscles of the calves and up through the knee joint and the hip joint. Got a couple more people just zooming in here. I'll get them in. There we go. So those are the kind of things we want to think about as we come into our class today. So we're going to start lying down on our back. And bring your washcloth with you. Bring your strap with you. You can keep your knees bent and your feet on the floor. That might be more comfortable for your back. And we'll start in this position we often call constructive rest. So once you've got organized and come to a comfortable position, let's get right into it by drawing awareness to your feet. When you allow your feet to rest into the floor the way you are now, notice the places where your foot contacts the floor or your mat and the places where it rises away from the floor or the mat. You actually have three arches in both of your feet. You have the arch that we often think of on the inside edge of the foot, but there's also an arch across the ball of the foot and then down the outside of the foot. And the bones that you saw that picture of a few seconds ago, all those bones form together to form little bridges. Each one of these bridges has an important job. So in the advertisement for this class, I talked about putting a spring in your step. And we know that the interaction of all these various bones together with their muscles and their connective tissue and their nerves, all of those bones breathe and shift and change with everything you do. When there's not a lot of responsiveness in this area of the body throughout the feet, then there's not a lot of zing or zest or zip coming up from every step you take. Today, we're going to really focus on what goes on in the feet during some familiar movements like constructive rest, so that you can really start to restore the natural flexibility and resilience in your feet. I know that when I was little and when my boys were little, we rushed out as soon as they started to weight bear on their feet and got them really good structured shoes. And then I spent many years looking for good arch support in my shoes and all that kind of stuff. And then when you get into yoga, you realize that maybe that wasn't the best plan. Putting heavy shoes or structured shoes on your feet is like right now, if you took earmuffs and put them over top of your ears, it'd be very difficult to hear the subtleties of what we're talking about. So kind of turning a little bit up on end, that decades of conditioning that we need special shoes. We're going barefoot today, and we're going to try to work with the natural resilience and zing and zip and zest in your feet. So while you're here in constructive rest, feet into the floor, can you sense, and this is a challenge to start the class, can you sense your feet, the soles of your feet, breathing? So you've been doing yoga quite a while, and you know that when you inhale, there's a slight inflation in the body as the lungs take the air in. And then you know as you exhale, there's a slight deflation of the body. You probably have studied the main thoracic diaphragm, maybe even the throat diaphragm, maybe even the pelvic floor diaphragm. Have you ever considered the diaphragm that might be in your feet? That the arches in your feet shift ever so gently as you breathe in and you breathe out. I want to be quiet just for a second so you can really concentrate. And see if you can sense the soles of your feet moving as you breathe. Okay. Now, you maybe didn't associate that with a lot of really big movements, and that's okay. But if you were able to mentally focus for a little while on your feet, you've already achieved one of the most important aspects of this class. When we break down and we do these kind of therapeutic yoga classes and we say we're going to do hips or we're going to do shoulders, everything in the whole body is affected. You can't separate one part of your body out. But when you think about these humble feet and really give them that attention, you've already started to initiate some changes. And I hope that the changes are going in a really good direction for you. Okay, let's maybe take ourselves over to the side, press up from the floor. Take your time and come up to a standing position. So we'll do a mountain pose right away. When you get to mountain pose, align yourself carefully. Know that despite what traditional yoga cues might have suggested, you do want a small space between your feet. And ideally, when we're doing this kind of therapeutic work, it'd be great if the ankle joint was under the knee joint, which was under your hip joint. Perfect. And then stand on your own 2 feet, trying to keep that same tender awareness of the breathing movements now that you're fully weight bearing on your feet. Now, for many of us, it'll be like, seriously? I mean, I just feel so much weight now on my foot. I have pain perhaps in my feet. I have a long history with my feet. I can't feel my feet moving when I'm weight bearing on them. Well, what if you imagine that you could? What if you imagine as you inhale, the arches of the feet balloon a little bit down towards the floor, and as you exhale, the arches of the feet elevate and lift up towards the center line of your body? Just try that for 2 or 3 more breaths. We're just playing with this idea. Okay. And then let's take a really slow walk around your space. Really slow walk. Lift up one leg, reach it forward. Notice how the foot, so go real slow. Notice how the foot lands on the floor. What part of your foot specifically touches the floor first? Then what does the foot do as you lift off the back leg and transfer weight? And then how do you propel yourself forward? So asking yourself, what's my habit when I walk? When you slow it down, you might have more time to observe that. Now, in a traditional or an ideal gait, the weight initially hits the ground on the outer heel. Then you move and transfer the weight forward onto that front foot and you push off of the big toe. So it moves across your foot. Everyone slightly pronates when they walk. So if you've ever been sold very expensive running shoes and told that you pronate, everybody does to some degree. Maybe you did need a little bit of help in that direction, but a lot of us didn't and still got sold the expensive running shoes anyway. Good. Okay. Now I want you to memorize how it feels, how connected you feel to your right and your left foot. We're going to come into some work now, and we'll come back to walking in a minute. So could you please come back down into constructive rest? Bring your strap and your washcloth with you. They're close by, I hope. Okay. So we're going to use our strap to find hand to big toe pose. Let's say we start working with the right leg, just so we're all kind of on the same side. You're welcome to keep both legs bent at this point. Bring your right knee a little bit closer in. Take the strap around the ball of the right foot. So you want to be right across the ball of the foot, not in the arch, in the ball of the foot. Remember that picture you looked at the sole of the foot a few minutes ago? All that connective tissue, all that soft muscle tissue would be pulled on if you used your strap around your arch. So ball of the foot. Hold one end of the strap in your left hand, one end in your right hand, like you're holding for the reins of a horse. Let your elbows rest on the ground so there's no stress on your shoulders or your upper body doesn't start tensing up, and push the leg away from you. I would like it if we could bring the right knee into a very straight position, although it's not necessary to get the leg all the way up to the ceiling. You can let the leg drop away from you a little bit at some other angle than 90 degrees from the floor. Good. And then please go back and visit your low back. Imprint your sacrum to the mat and make sure that the right side of your hips is equal to the floor compared to the left side. Sometimes in order to get a big stretch, and I'm putting that in quotation marks, stretch, the right hip might elevate a little bit. So bring the right hip bone back down to the ground. Keep your hips level to the ground. Now push the ball of the foot out into the strap. And we're going to play around a little bit with the way the foot is positioned here. So I want you, if you can, while you're holding, to pull a little bit more with your right hand, and you'll notice your foot kind of tips sideways to the right. And then pull a little bit more with the left hand and steer your foot so it faces a little bit or pulls a little bit over towards the left. So the leg's not moving. This is a movement in the ankle joint that's tipping the actual foot, right side and then left side. This is called eversion and inversion of the foot. So your leg is steady where it was. It's not going right and left. Just your foot is pointing one way and then pointing. It's not a big movement. Okay, good. Then come back to center, strap around the ball of the foot, and wiggle your toes. Fan them out, close them in. Yeah. You might find some interesting sensations moving down the leg and into the hip. Just check back with your hips, make sure that they're even to the floor. Okay, now we're going to work with our breath a little bit here. As you inhale, extend the ankle joint, so push the ball of the foot into the strap against a little bit of that resistance. Straighten the ankle joint out. We call this plantar flexion. And then bend the ankle joint, toes pull back down to the shin, and we call this dorsiflexion. In all cases, there's a little bit of leverage that you're using through your arms, so the strap is providing a little tiny bit of resistance. Do the best you can to keep your leg perfectly straight, right leg perfectly straight. Good. And we're going to do one more thing while we still have the strap like this. When you're ready, I'd like you to inhale with your leg straight and exhale, pull a little bit more on the strap and gradually fold your knee directly towards your right breast. And then inhale, push quite firmly back up to a straight leg. Good. So you're bending the knee and straightening the knee, but you're really trying to go at this quite meticulously. So the knee is coming straight down and moving, the legs moving straight back up. Many of us have a habit of bending the knee out to the side. Many of us want to get a big stretch in. Let's not do that. Let's really work, because you know your knee has to bend like this every step you take. So let's make sure you're not using your knee joint inappropriately as you walk. Let's take one more breath like this. And then let's release the right foot back down onto the floor beside the left. And before we rush to the other side, you know what's coming, but before you jump in, can you breathe with the soles of your feet? Okay, let's try something different. We're still working with the right side briefly. Can you get a hold of your right foot somehow? And I'm holding my foot up in case it's not clear what I mean, but can you find right at the ball of the foot, there's a little like a curvature to the bottom of the foot, right in the hollow, in the center of the ball of the foot. So you're not really on the ball of the foot, you're just inside of it. If you can find this space right here and just gently press in with your thumb, maybe your right thumb, and do a little gentle circular motion, clockwise perhaps, with that right thumb in that little well in the center of the ball of your foot, just beneath the center of the ball of your foot. If you can't reach it, use your imagination and see if you can touch base with that part of your foot just with your internal awareness. And then let's bring the feet back down to the ground. Now, do you sense that the right foot moves a little bit more when you breathe? Maybe it does. Okay, let's go on to the left side. Get the strap around the ball of the left foot. You know what we're doing now. One end of the strap in each of your hands, elbows resting on the floor so there's no strain or sense of pulling through your shoulders. Good. And the left leg as straight as possible, but certainly it doesn't have to be absolutely up to the sky. I'd rather see the leg dropped away from you a little bit and a nice straight right knee. And then let's do the little steering from side to side. So pulling a little bit on the left side of the strap, we'll angle the left foot that way, and then pulling a little bit on the right side, we'll kind of steer the right foot, or sorry, the left foot to angle that way. So the sole of the foot in center is straight up to the sky, but the sole of the foot might be pointed a little bit right or a little bit left as you steer through the reins of your strap. And again, your leg remains exactly where it was in space and time. It's just your ankle joint and foot that would be shifting here. All right, let's come back to center and let's wiggle the toes. So spread the toes out and then fold them in a little bit. Notice how that wiggling of the toes, you haven't moved the ankle joint here, just the toes. Notice how that makes sensation right up your leg and into your hip. And now we'll take an inhale, extend the ankle joint. So the ball of the foot pushes out into the strap straight. And then exhale, bend the ankle joint, toes draw back in towards your shin. A few slow times like that, trying to keep the ankle joint nice and balanced, using the resistance of the strap to bring a little strength to these important muscles. And then we'll move into the knee movement. So inhale, leg is straight. Exhale, knee folds in. And then you push the knee straight against the resistance of the strap. And that's done on your inhale again. And really watching the way the knee bends. It's not about doing this as fast as you can. It's about trying to really identify where you might have a habit of misusing your knee joint. And this will affect your gait. When you want to go for a walk, it might be causing tension all the way up the whole line of the body. Let's do one more breath like this. And then let your strap be released. And maybe we can get a hold of the left foot and find that little dimple on the bottom of your foot, just at the base of the middle of the ball of the foot. I believe this is a marma point or a special energy point in yoga theory, but I believe the Chinese have a really romantic name for this called the bubbling well. I'm not a Chinese medicine specialist, but one of my teachers told me that, and I like that. So a little circular motion with the left thumbnail, maybe in a clockwise direction. And then let your feet come back to the ground when you're ready and ask yourself, can I feel the left foot moving just a little bit more as I breathe? Okay. When you're ready, let's slowly roll over to the side and press up from the floor. And we'll stretch our legs out in front, just from a seated position. Just like this. Now, if you know that you have one side of your body that tends to give you a little bit more grief than the other, why not go to the happier side? So this is my happier side. I'm going to start here. I'm going to take this foot, so the foot that's not really involved yet, and I'm going to place it just on top of the other foot. As I exhale, I'm going to try to bring the leg I'm working, this side, into more dorsiflexion. So I'm going to try to bring this foot back. And I'm going to feel a little bit of resistance as I push forward with the opposite foot. On the inhale, I'm going to relax that. Let me turn sideways. That might be a little bit more evident. And on the exhale, I'm going to try to bring that leg into dorsiflexion while resisting with the opposite leg. Try that for a couple more breaths. Exhaling on the effortful part, inhaling to relax, and then one more time. This is working on a muscle at the front of your shins. You can probably feel that. It's responsible for shin splints. A lot of us are trying to get out for a lot more walks these days. So you just did a little kindness for yourself. Let's switch to the other side. You don't have to work really, really hard when you're coming into the effortful part. Maybe think about 30 to 40% power with your work. And you're just trying to wake up a few muscles at the front of your shins. Maybe do that for 2 more breaths. And then let your legs stretch out. Bend your knees. Take your feet a fair distance apart from each other. And then take an inhale here. And as you exhale, drop the knees gently to one side. Inhale, come back to center, and exhale, drop to the other side. So while you're doing this, you can work just like this. But because our focus is feet today, I'm going to grab something soft like this big bolster. You can use a blanket, a couch cushion, whatever you have handy. If you're working on a carpet, you don't maybe need anything. But as I take my legs from side to side very slowly, I'm kind of mashing or massaging my feet, all different sides of my feet, into the bolster. Now you might say, why would you do that? Like, what would this do to stretch or strengthen your feet? Well, I want you to think, if you can, about the connective tissue in your body as a big stocking. I mean, who wears nylons anymore? But think about a big stocking. And the stockings you pull up over your feet, they come up to your hips, but then they keep going. And the stocking comes all the way up over your torso, your arms, your shoulders, your hands, right to the top of your head. So your entire body is part of the stocking. And the stocking is not only on the outside of your body, but it weaves amongst every one of your muscle spindles and throughout your bone tissue, everywhere, all your organs. Now, when you start to move through your feet, if you had a stocking that wove through every part of your body would be affected by the movement of the stocking starting. So that's kind of what we're doing here. By massaging the feet, loosening tension in the feet, what we're doing is loosening tension throughout the entire body. Okay, we're getting ready to come back up to mountain pose. So you can get rid of that prop and come back up to stand. I think I'm going to keep the computer kind of angled down so you won't be able to see the top end of the postures quite as much, but our focus is feet today, and so that's probably more important. When you come to stand in mountain pose, can you take awareness back down to the relationship your feet have with the floor and imagine or even sense that you can feel the feet moving as you breathe? Can you feel the diaphragm of the feet? Try to keep that sensitivity as you turn sideways in your mat and take your feet some distance apart from each other. We're going to do a few familiar standing poses, but from the point of view of your feet. Stabilizing so that your hips stay square to the long edge of your mat, just turn the right leg outward, getting ready to come into a triangle pose. Let your right knee have a little bit of flex to it. It's better to have a little bit of movement in the joints surrounding the feet and the ankles and the hips so that the knee doesn't, you don't want one joint taking all of the load of the twist. If you find when you turned your right leg out that you really felt you had to turn your pelvis a little bit, that's fine. Just adjust the back leg. So internally rotate it, turn the toes on a bit of an angle back here so that you feel like everything's back into a nice, neutral, easy place. Because the feet are so much of a focus, before we get into triangle, let's actually look down at our feet. So we were talking about the left leg initially. You want to make sure that especially the outside edge of your left foot is fully aligned to the floor, that you haven't let yourself collapse in to the arch, and I'm exaggerating, but energetically that happens for a lot of people. Can you sense that bubbling well point underneath your left foot? So just kind of try to connect energetically with the earth energy underneath that point in your foot and push into the lateral edge. And even just doing that before I'm even moving into the pose, I'm feeling a lot of activation along the outside line of my leg, right into my left hip. You might want to gather energy into the left buttock just to kind of take that stretch up and stabilize it. Now for the right foot, those toes are pointed straight to the short edge of your mat, and you feel what we call all 4 corners of the foot. So either side of the ball of the foot, big toe side, baby toe side, and either side of the heel, inside and outside heel. Lift and spread your toes in both feet, just like you did when you were doing your hand to big toe stuff, and get those arch muscles really activated. Okay, let's come into triangle pose. Inhale, arms expand. Exhale, tipping to one side, and not worrying about going hand to block, hand to four, nothing like that. Just really opening up from the center of the chest through the arms so you can breathe deeply. Then go back down if you can with your awareness to your feet and see if you can sense the soles of your feet moving as you breathe. This is a lot harder now because there's asymmetrical weight on your feet. It's a new skill set we're working on. Take a nice deep breath in and out. And then I might suggest looking down at your right foot as you inhale back up. Let's try side angle pose. This is another pose that really helps to open the outer line back here and stretch some of the tight muscles on that ankle. So let the knee bend. It comes right over top of the right ankle now. Inhale, open like you did for triangle pose prep, but this time just reach really far forward towards this end of your room. Drop the right forearm lightly onto this thigh, and then sweep the other arm up and over so that your left arm is reaching towards the top edge of your mat and it's right on top of your left ear. Let's go back to thinking about feet again. So pushing now into the lateral edge, the outside edge of your left foot. Press into the big toe ball mound of your left foot and lift and wiggle your toes. Is there interesting things happening down there in your foot? Now take your left toes and gather them up. Try to bunch your mat up underneath your toes. Lift and spread your left toes and then try to bunch up. Try that a couple times, really strengthening all the way up the left leg. Good. Again, you might want to look down at your right foot just for balance. And inhale, lift yourself back up. Bring your feet parallel. Let's briefly release that and roll out the ankle joints a couple times, just loosening up. So after we do a lot of strength work, it's nice to return to a softer balance. Coming back into your wide-legged stance. Touching base with your breath. We want to learn new body patterning. You want to make sure that you're in a relaxed state of mind. If you're coming at this with a competitive edge or lots of tension, it's really hard to relax and learn new skills. Okay, hips staying steady. Roll just outward with the left leg. Remember, adjustments on this side are fine, especially rolling this thigh bone in a little bit to make your hips feel more neutral, turning the toes in a little bit if that's helpful. And before we come into triangle pose, looking at what's happening at the feet, especially the outside edge of this right leg. When you're ready, little bend in the left knee is fine. Inhale, exhale, leaning into Trikonasana on this side. So it's not a really deep pose. We're not trying to do anything exciting here. The focus is on the feet. So the first thing is to check in with the feet and notice what it feels like to have an asymmetrical load on your feet. Can you keep equal awareness in both feet? Because we're leaning to one side, our bodies, our minds just kind of want to think all about the left side now. So go back to the right foot, press into the outside edge of the right foot and the big toe ball mound of your right foot. Lift and spread your toes and then try to gather up the mat with your right toes, back and forth. And that's really a strengthening sort of thing to be doing for all of the muscles in your feet. And then see if you can touch base even with, say, that bubbling well point in the ball of the foot of the right foot. Just see if you can suck up the energy from the earth all the way up the right side of the body into the right buttock. Take one more breath. Maybe you're looking down now at your left foot so you can lift up and release out of Trikonasana. Let's get ready for our side angle pose. Knees right over the ankle. And even though we're exaggerating the weight shift over to the left even more, stay grounded in that right foot. Inhale, exhale, reach out towards the back edge of your mat. Lightly place the forearm onto the thigh. Sweep the arm up and over the top ear. Revisit the feet with your awareness. Go back to the outside edge of that right foot and the big toe ball mound of that right foot. Try the movement with the toes again. Do you remember we were steering the foot back and forth with the strap earlier? We called it inversion, eversion. Play around with that. Play around with any movements you might be able to find in your ankle joint, and then find the balance of it all. Find right in the middle. Take one more nice deep breath. Looking down at your left foot, release up out of the posture. Turn your ankles parallel. Slowly come back together. And again, you may find that you want to do a little bit of stretching and releasing for the ankle or the knee joints. Here's where we're going to use a little bit of that washcloth. So taking your little old washcloth, and I'll come closer so you can see, this is very thinly folded. It's just a little tiny thin fold. It's not much at all. So if you're used to using a blanket, that might be too much. We're going to take this washcloth and place it just on one side and come into mountain pose. Left foot, the ball of the foot on the washcloth, right foot beside it. So just like that. Notice just that tiny, like, quarter inch, half inch, if that, height changes the way your feet breathe. When you're ready, take an inhale, exhale, soften your knees and come into forward fold. Take a breath here, noticing the different stretch with that left leg, the left side of your hips. And then take the hands to the backside. Inhale, lift all the way up. And switch the washcloth to underneath the other foot. Soft bend in the knees. Inhale, exhale, forward fold. Keep your knees a bit bent. Focus on lifting the sitting bones. And there may be a gentle stretch in your right calf. Okay, inhale, come back up. Just put the washcloth to the side. We might come back to that again. Come to your wall space. Take your hands to your wall. And let's start with the right foot forward. Bring the right foot forward. Let the toes curl up the baseboard, but the ball of the foot is on the floor. The heel is on the floor, but just the toes are curled right up. Step your left leg back and find lunge pose. Right knee directly over the ankle, pointing right towards the wall. You're up on the ball of your back foot. Hands can be on the wall right in front of your shoulders to help you find a little bit of steadiness here. Press equally into both feet, making sure that the back heel is pointing straight back. Sometimes we have a tendency to fall to one side with that back heel. Stretch the back calf. And here's where we're going to move into a little bit of a different calf muscle now. We start with the knee straight, take an inhale here, and as you exhale, just bend the back knee ever so slightly. Inhale, come back to straight calf, push the heel away. Exhale, bend the back knee ever so slightly. This is really a lot harder than I think someone just looking on would think so. So take your time, only bend the left knee to the degree you feel safe doing so, even if you just think about doing the motion. Good. And then if you really like the lunge pose, you can lift both arms up and not have to touch the wall at all. We'll just hold here for one more breath. And then hands come back to the wall. If you've lifted them, step away from the wall and take a mountain pose. Before we go and do that on the other side, let's take a short walk around your space, just like we did earlier. Now, ask yourself, are you hearing anything more from your left foot than your right now? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, let's come back to the wall. We'll do exactly the same thing. Hands in front of the shoulders. This time the left foot is forward. Now the toes are curled up the baseboard, but the whole ball of the foot is on the floor. Step the right leg back, the right distance for you, and your left knee directly over the ankle, pointing straight at the wall. Try to make sure that your back heel is lifted and pointed straight back rather than off on some sort of angle. Feel the stretch in your right calf. And then we can move a little bit with the breath. This is a subtle movement that changes the stretch between the gastroc and the soleus back there. Inhale, straight leg. Exhale, small bend. Inhale, straight leg. Exhale, small bend. The only thing that's changing is the knee on my right side. Everything else is the same. The knee on the left side is the same. My spine is upright. Good. And then we can hold lunge pose, and you can release the wall if you don't need it for balance. Take one more nice deep breath in and out. And then release. You might want to do a little bit of ankle loosening after all of that. Okay. Let's try Warrior One with a little bit of a different emphasis. So take your washcloth, again, very, very thin support, hardly anything going on, and bring it to the front of your mat. Let's start with the right foot forward. So put the ball of the foot, the whole ball of the foot, up on the washcloth again. Step the left leg back, bend the right knee, and you're in your Warrior One legs. When you feel you're ready, you can bring the arms up or any other variation. Hands at the heart is fine. Bring your awareness, if you can, to the back leg, which is my left leg, and push into the outside edge of that left foot. So we want to be really grounded in the lateral side of your left heel. Really push into the foot, into the floor on the left side, and bring that energy up to the left buttock and activate it. Take one more breath. And then step your left foot up beside your right foot. So now the left ball of the foot is up on the washcloth, and we'll step the right leg back to find Warrior One on the other side. Any arm variation is fine. And once you get set up into Warrior One, please think about your back foot pressing into the outside edge of that back foot. Try lifting and spreading your toes a little toe action on your right foot. And you'll notice that the muscles that we looked at in that picture earlier are all flexing and stretching and talking to each other. There's just this huge cultural exchange going on back there in that foot. Take one more breath. And then we can release. Stand in mountain pose for a moment. Just kind of absorbing. And then see if you can fold your washcloth again so it's twice as thick as what it's been up until now. Have the washcloth more towards the back of the mat now. I want a nice firm edge. And I'm going to start Warrior One again, but I'm going to come with the back foot on the washcloth. So I know my foot has to be out on a bit of an angle. It's just the ball of the foot that I want on the washcloth, and my foot is angled a little bit. Now I'm going to step the other foot forward. This is not going to be as deep of a Warrior One stance as what you're used to, I would guess. So you'll notice that that back foot is on an angle, 30 to 40 degrees, something like that. The toes are kind of pointing to the top right corner of your mat. The heel is reaching down and connected to the ground back there. The whole ball of the foot is up on that slightly thicker washcloth. Lift and spread your toes of your right foot. And now we want to really feel that connection between the heel and the floor back there. Now we'll turn to face the top edge of your mat. There's a little bend in your front knee. Let's come into pyramid pose from here. Take your hands to your hips. Inhale your spine long. Exhale, hinge halfway forward. Now just make sure you're still really grounded into that right heel, that you still know where your right leg is. You can stay here. If you have a little bit more, release your hands to your front thigh and fold the belly button towards the left knee. I would love to still see a little bend in that left knee. No need to go to the full length of your flexibility. If you start to really exploit your hamstrings here or your hip flexibility, you may not get everything we want out of that right foot. So rather than getting really sexy with this, let's look back at the right foot. Really push down through the right heel and elongate from the right heel out through the crown of the head. Remember that stocking that we talked about? Stretch the stocking from the heel to the crown of the head. Breathe in one more time. And then come upright, step off of your washcloth and come into mountain pose for a moment. Before we do that same thing on the other side, do you sense perhaps that you're breathing and moving under the right sole of your foot a little bit more? To test the theory, take a few steps. Are you getting more information? Are you getting more feedback? Do you feel more intimately connected to your right foot? Okay, come back to your mat. I'm going to move the washcloth to the left side of my mat and do the exact same thing. So I want to have the ball of the foot up on the washcloth, but the heel on the ground. And my foot will be angled slightly so that I feel I can stay square to the top edge of my mat. Step the right foot forward, not too far, little bend in the knee. Really feeling that connection between the left heel now and the ground behind me. Inhale, get nice and tall. Exhale, forward fold, just halfway. Take the hands to the front shin. Really push back into the left heel. Be very connected to the left heel. Take a few deep breaths. You can fold a little bit more deeply if you want, angling your chest or your belly button towards the right kneecap. But make it about stretching between the back heel all the way to the crown of the head, lengthening that body. So you don't really want to fold in half here. You want to create more length, more elongation. Last breath. And then stepping into mountain pose again. In mountain pose, do you feel like you're more connected to the earth now? We want to spring in our step. Be aware of the fact that when you apply pressure down through your foot into the earth, it's physics for there to be an equal and opposite reaction to lift you back up. If you're able to feel that force transferring easily through your feet and ankles, you'll have more spring in your step. All right, let's come down onto our backs. Bring your washcloth with you for a bit of a funky variation on bridge pose. Many of you might be working in bridge pose to stabilize your hips. I've taught this with a block between the knees or a strap around the outer thighs. So if that's been a custom kind of thing you like to do, by all means, you can have those modifications in this version, no problem. Okay, let's do traditional bridge pose a couple times with our breath just to warm up. We've been so focused on the lower half of the body, we haven't done a lot for spinal mobility today. So arms at your sides, gaze straight up at the ceiling. When you inhale, lift your hips from the floor, and exhale, gently lower back down. And repeat that a couple breaths at the pace of your own breath. And in our version of bridge pose today, we're going to be kind of focused on keeping an even line from your chest up through your knees and out through a leg eventually. So we don't have to worry about that kind of bridge pose where you're really pushing your hips super high or anything like that. Okay, let's rest our spines back down to the ground and just evaluate how that starts shifting things. Okay. Now we might hold bridge pose and start playing around a little bit. So if you feel ready, let's inhale, lift our hips, hold the hips up while you continue to breathe. Knees are pointing straight forward. Their relationship hasn't changed since your back was on the floor. Now, what would happen if you come up onto the balls of your feet and push your knees forward a little bit? Yeah. See if you can drop the heels back down, but keep the hips where they just were, and then lower back down altogether. Rest for a moment. So when you do that kind of thing in yoga, think about all the work that we've done up to now where we kept the ankle joint straight as you lifted up onto the balls of the feet. You don't want the ankles bowing out from each other or bowing in towards each other. You want them nice and linear. Let's try a different foot variation. Let's come up into bridge pose. Keep your knees exactly aligned, but roll more weight onto the outside edges of your feet. Don't let your knees come apart. Keep them right where they were. Now roll more weight onto the inside edges of your feet, but don't let your knees knock together. Keep them right where they were. And go back and forth a couple times if you want to really start feeling how ankle flexibility is stiff for many of us. We want to just do stuff with the hips and the knees, but see if you can get the ankles to do all of that. Okay. And then let's come back down. Whew. Last version of bridge pose here. If you're feeling fatigued or tired, no, you can skip any of this. It doesn't really matter. Let's take your washcloth and try to hold your washcloth with your right toes. So grip your washcloth with your right toes. And it can be just, you know, like in any bunched up. It doesn't have to be folded a special way. Good. Okay. Now, if you can, lift your right leg up so the knees are level with each other. Now your right leg will be straight. Your left knee is bent with the foot on the floor. Left foot on the floor. Yeah. So you're going to do bridge pose with only your left leg to push you up. And your right leg is stretched out alongside the left thigh with the washcloth in the foot. Isn't this crazy? Okay, go ahead. Lift up your hips in bridge pose. Yeah. Keep your right leg kind of parallel to the floor so it's not lifted too high up. Your knees are kind of together here. And then grip the washcloth a little bit more tightly and then relax a little bit and then grip it a little bit more tightly and relax a little bit, but try not to drop the washcloth from your right foot. So you're using your toes to hold on to the washcloth. You're not just draping the washcloth over your toes. That would be cheating. So you're trying to work your toes. Yes. Okay. Let's release back down. Release both feet back down. And if you want to kind of work out your right ankle a little bit. So the idea of gripping the washcloth with the toes is to really strengthen the musculature of your foot. And of course, when you pull on the musculature of the right foot, when you're elevated like that, you're pulling on that whole stocking. You're strengthening the whole stocking of your body. Okay, washcloth into the left foot. It's not just draped over the left foot. You're trying to hold on to it with your toes. It's a bit of a crazy thing to do here. And then when you lift up into bridge pose, your right foot's on the floor. That's what's pushing you up. And your left leg is alongside of your right leg, but it's straight. So your knees are in the same vicinity. And then you kind of work the toes, gripping in the washcloth, and they can let go a little bit, but don't drop the washcloth. Yeah. So you may get a bit of cramping. Get out of it right away if you get cramping and try again another time. But you can see if you get cramping, how important the strength work for your feet is. Okay. Let's let bridge pose go. Get rid of the washcloth. That was kind of a fun thing to do. And then if you have that blanket or cushion that you were using earlier for the side to side motion of the knees, let's put it underneath the feet again. So anything soft under your feet is good. Not too high. Take your feet as wide apart as you can manage on whatever prop you found and do that side to side motion with your knees. So inhale, knees center, exhale, the feet roll to one side, and then inhale, the feet roll to the other side. So what we're trying to do is trying to massage as many surfaces of your feet as we can into this cushion, into this soft place. Go back and forth a few times and allow yourself to feel some pleasure here. These feet have worked really hard for you today. So allow yourself to feel some softening or some pleasure. Let your toes relax. See if you can mentally connect with the bubbling well points on the soles of both of your feet and just receive from that. Now you can continue with this. This is great work. But another thing you could do is roll right over onto your belly and have the tops of your feet on this cushion or blanket, and then roll your tops of your feet to massage the tops of your feet into this nice soft support. Roll right to the outside edges and over to the big toe sides of the feet, massaging the tops of your feet. So it's a lot less fat up here on the tops of your feet. The bones are much more exposed. So you definitely want padding to do this. And you want this to feel pleasant. This is another way to in a really loving way to work on the shin muscles and help to prevent or treat shin splints. So let's lovingly massage our feet a little bit longer, softening all surfaces of the feet, relaxing your whole body right up to the top of your stocking at the crown of the head. Yeah. Love feet, love your feet. I love when I can get a hold of a baby's feet. You massage their feet and they just drink it all in. So you be the baby now and you massage the baby's feet. Okay. All right, that's pretty much all I got. So if you're done with this, let's maybe roll over if you're not on your back already and adjust into a comfortable resting position. Shavasana. Legs up the wall pose might be really delicious right now, or I see some people working from their couches or bedrooms. Those are props that you can use to throw your legs up. And then settle into stillness. Once you have your body settled, bring your awareness, please, back down to those beautiful feet. And without actually moving them at all, just see if you can recreate the body memory of what it felt like to spread your toes, to roll your ankles around, to move your feet into the soft pillow or blanket that you were using to massage them. See if you can remember what it felt like to touch the bubbling well point on the sole of each of your feet. As you think about your feet, receive sensory information, such as maybe tingling or pulsing. Notice the temperature of the feet. And then please bring your awareness up through your ankles and calves and shins, your knees, your thighs. Please bring your awareness up further into your hips and buttocks, your low belly, the whole length of your spine, your shoulders, arms, hands. Bring the awareness up through the neck, over the face, right to the top of your skull. See if it's possible to be aware of your whole body like this simultaneously, from the tips of your toes to the top of your crown. And if it's helpful to pull in the imagery of a stocking again, by all means do that. And see if you can feel the oscillation of this stocking or this connection you have through your whole body as you breathe in and you breathe out. As you breathe in, a slight opening or expansion of the stocking. And as you breathe out, a slight collecting in or organizing of the stocking. The breath oscillating through all of the little compartments and places of your body. See if you can welcome sensations in your feet and coordinate your awareness with the rest of your body simultaneously. Just taking a few more breaths to acknowledge that intimate relationship that your feet have to all of your movement. Even breathing. You are so welcome to stay in this position for some time yet. But if the day calls you to move on now, be very gentle as we reawaken movement. We often start our journey out of Shavasana with toe wiggles, and that kind of makes more sense now, doesn't it? Take your time as you roll over to your side, feeling your body move in an integrated and coordinated way. And then join me in seated whenever you have time. I'd like to close our formal practice this afternoon by sharing the sacred sound of Om. I bring my hands together at the heart, expressing my desire to have that integration and that togetherness. And I'm inhaling now. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste.